I am back on the Talk Music podcast, and I'm very excited to chat to the one and only Kaki King, who, and I'm just pausing there because I'm counting in my head, this is the fourth interview, which,
Really?
thinking out loud, that makes you the person that I've interviewed the most. How much of everything that you've achieved in your career, where does this rank in your list of accomplishments, having done this podcast more than anybody?
It's lucky for you
Wow.
that I have low standards.
Yes.
Because this, like all things, ranks incredibly high. Because, like I said, getting out of bed is already, I've won the day. No, it's an honor, and it's been cool to get to know you and to, like follow you and your thing and watch you plan and watch you having babies and all that stuff. So it's been cool, man.
Yeah, awesome. And like every artist overseas, they start to get very excited when a European tour is booked, like Kaki is, but then there's that horrible negative moment when they think, I'm probably going to have to do another fucking podcast with Scott. So here we are.
It's true.
Yes.
I do wonder if I should pull the trigger because I'm like, oh, God, that guy again.
Yeah, people go like, European tour, that'll be fun. And then the management or whoever sit them down and go like, you do know what that means, don't you? That fucking guy again.
That fucking guy.
Yeah. But I'm the winner in this scenario, so it's awesome.
Hey, here we are. You take the time to learn my songs, which is head and shoulders above most, I would say 100% of other podcasters that I work with.
Yes.
So I'm chuffed. Is that the right usage?
Yeah, is chuffed? I get the feeling that's a UK term that you're showing off there. But yes.
I am.
Is that a UK term?
Indeed.
Yes, you're showing your multicultural ways.
Exactly.
Yes, right context, right timing.
The rest of the interview will be in French.
You're on your own. So with that in mind, you're talking about people learning your songs, right? So I'm going to start with this. Are you aware of how many people actually cover your songs on YouTube? Because I think it is a massive sign of respect when you see the amount of guitar players. I would love to be in a position where somebody gave a shit enough about one of my songs to learn it, let alone one of yours that's got that level of intricacy. Have you seen these? Have you seen the amount of people that put stuff up?
So, like, every time I can repost or like give someone props, I'm so honored. It's so cool. It really, and so many people do such an amazing job because a lot of people are doing it by ear or by like some tab that's some kind, it gets filtered through whatever. And what I love too is that there's no like right or wrong. It's people's their own personal spin. So there's no like correcting anyone. It's incredible that people are like, I'm gonna sit down like I did when I was a teen. I remember the reverence I had for people whose songs I would learn. And now to have people do that for me, it's like it's just amazing. It spreads the love, and I am honored that I've like what I've written has this kind of value for the technical player as well as the the emotional composer.
So we're embarking on 20 years of this, right? Which brings us to the forthcoming tour. I've obviously referencing the first album. So has it been an odd experience? I would assume to a certain degree you're relearning that album, or is this just a case of it's all in the bag and I knew it note for note, or is it a case of revisiting? How's it been?
There's two main songs that I'm revisiting. The first is Close Your Eyes, Burst into Flames, which I kind of played it to death. That was the big one from the first record that I played on television and whatnot. And, I think what happened is in my mind, as I grew into some of the song, I was like, this is very immature. It was very sort of showy, and I guess I was playing it and being like, you know what, this is really overdone, and I have better songs, and now that I look back and I'm relearning what I did precisely, I'm like, oh man, that was a really cool idea, and maybe it was a little fancy or showy or oddball or but it's really cool. I would never write a song like that now. Same goes with a song called Everybody Loves You. It's the name, the title track, and it really is quite, just there's so much in there, And for me to kind of go back and relearn it is, yeah, it's super tricky. These are songs that I haven't played for, stopped playing 15 years ago. And I think that it's given me a lot of love for my former self, where before I was like, ooh, anything that was a little bit cringy, I just was like, no, I'm moving on. That's not what I do anymore. And now I look back and go, yeah, like I was onto something. I was really young and just trying my best. And I'm proud of what I did.
There's pieces of music in that album that's like Night After Sidewalk. When I tell people, because I'm often like, I go about and say you should check out Kaki. She's brilliant.
Thank you.
She's brilliant. Okay, so I'm expecting some sort of percentage at some point for all
Yeah,
of this, right?
it's
Okay, so we'll sort it out. We'll get the
just
contract sorted.
bill me.
Yeah.
Send me the invoice.
And
But I'm gonna bill you for being on this podcast, so
of
it
course,
was even out. Okay, cool.
yeah. We'll get our lawyers. We'll sort it all.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, that piece of it's a great piece of music, right? I know you get embarrassed with compliments and everything, but when I tell people, I say, I think she was a teen when she wrote that. Were you 18 when you wrote? Is that right? 18 years old? Because that's impressive.
I was probably 19 or 20. Probably, I think, a lot of these songs had their origin, basically my first 2 years of college. And Night After Sidewalk, I wrote really quickly. I went to a open mic night at this place called the Sidewalk Cafe. And the open mic night, the purpose of that was kind of everyone would get to play a song or two. And then you would get booked for a gig right then and there. And it was, at the time, I didn't realize that it was not as sort of open / inviting as it could have been, like every scene. So, and also I was young and I didn't really know how to read the room. So I got up and I did my song, which was like some, probably something like Close Your Eyes. And it was, I was shredding and I didn't get a gig. And my friend Julie, who I came with, did. And it was like, it was a blow. And I had never put myself out there really. This was like one of the first time, I think it was maybe one of the first open mics I ever did in my life. So I came back to my dorm and I went in my closet and I thought, okay, well, I'm giving up music for real. Fine, great. Well, I don't know, I'll just write one more song. And I wrote Night After Sidewalk right then. And so in a way, for me personally, it was, a tough night, came home, wrote a song, done, right? This story ends there or could have ended there. And what happened is when I recorded it on the record and I put it out on Everybody Loves You. Now, keep in mind, the attention I was getting was for all of the theatrical, technical stuff. Like that's what was, selling the shows and making the videos look cool and all of that. But Night After Sidewalk, this slow, patient, pretty song that's learnable, not too complex. That song was people's absolute favorite, the most streamed, the most loved, the most talked about, all of it. And I think that so for me, it's not really about that moment in my life when I didn't get a gig at an open mic. And this is, something obviously that I got over, but the song itself was like waiting to be born. And that was just its night. And it's meant so much more to others than it has to me, that I hold it really, I honor that. And it's something that I have deep respect for.
So out of everyone else's love for it, that's kind of became closer to you. It's meant more to you as a result of other people's
exactly.
reaction.
Well, it was like I felt like I was being sort of petulant and a little bratty by going, I'm just write one more song, my last song. And so it didn't have that kind of important release or, it was like, okay, cool. This came out weird. That happened fast. All right, whatever. And then, for it probably wasn't played in public again for years. And so again, it wasn't like, this is my story. This is our story. This is, whatever this song is, for whatever reason, whatever it's meant to people is important for me to honor and give, I guess.
One of the things, obviously, as we spoke about earlier, this is the fourth time you've been on. I had to listen to the last interview just to make sure that I wasn't being redundant. I'm sure we spoke about this at some stage in the previous 3 interviews, but when I was reaching out to the world, to the internet, saying that I've got you on, what should I ask Kaki? A lot of people were saying, "What's the songwriting process?" I've probably asked you that before, but you've spoke about it there about that song. But given that we're talking about of course the first album, let's make it specific to that then. So you've just mentioned Night After Sidewalk, about the process of writing that. Is there any interesting stories about the other tracks from that album that stand out to you? Go, here's something interesting behind the process of writing X song.
God, that's taken my brain back a long time. Back when I was a teenager and learning to play guitar in this style and writing music in this style, I had an enormous amount of free time. And I filled a lot of it with playing, and not just by myself, but I would sit with the family making dinner, or I would sit with, friends chatting or watching television. I mean, it was like a lot of just really serious repetition. I mean, almost to the point where I don't know what I was. It was like playing guitar was almost like a stress ball or a fidget or some kind of, just something to do with my hands. And so songs were born out of this really long process of kind of playing and then playing a bit more and playing a bit more. And they had no destination point. They had no end goal. They were just kind of happening. And, or the total opposite, which like a song like Joy or a song like The Exhibition, which are both basically improvisations. Just a kind of idea, a tuning, a couple chords, an idea, and then just play. So it's kind of one or the other for me. It seems like things just come out real fast and they kind of write themselves and they're done. Or that's like this it's not painstaking. It's just very slow revision, play, revision, like just, and not thinking too much about it.
Excellent. And I'm jumping back and forth here, but out of interest, you said Night After Sidewalk was written there and then. How long did that take? Was it half an hour? Was it an hour? Do you remember?
I just remember that I didn't like my roommate and I broke my desk in half. And anyway, I broke part of my desk so I could shove it in this closet, like get it around the corner. And I was basically living in this closet. And I remember I put like blue lights the way you do when you're in your college dorm and you're decorating. And I remember I kind of had this like cool little vibe in my tiny little room, and I sat there with my feet up on my desk and my guitar, and I wrote it in probably a couple hours.
Wow.
And it's not even I just remember thinking, wow, that was cool, because that was the whole song, as opposed to, again, the revision and all of the sort of constantly playing. Also, like, I've written only a couple of other songs in that tuning. That was a new tuning for me at the time. I think maybe I know there's some other songs that I knew that I hadn't, that were not things I'd written. So it was the first time I'd written in that too. Anyway, you get the idea. It was just like, I don't know how these things happen. I wish I could bottle them and package them and sell them, but I don't. You just have to be available for that magic sometimes.
And magic it is. How many guitars do you own?
I will tell you how many I need.
I like that. How many do you need?
I just need one more.
One more.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is spoken like a true guitar addict. It's just one more hit.
I have actually paired. I mean, it's funny because I pared down my personal collection, and then I got a whole bunch more because I have this one crazy show where I put like 18 guitars on stage and I dance around with my friend. So there's.
Yes, I've seen this.
This is I try my hardest not to keep instruments that I do not play. I'm not a collector. I don't love the idea of taking something that was made for a purpose and locking it up and sort of bringing it out once every year. And when that kind of does happen, or I do have some instruments that are either given to me, or I just, I try to keep everything in constant circulation, which is hard because I'm always like, I might want to play something on that later. And when you make a record, you really do. But right now it's, I'm probably around 40 something.
I spoke to. Are you familiar with are Youngblood? Is Youngblood a thing out there? Are you familiar with the
I've heard
artist
of
Youngblood?
I've heard of the artist Youngblood, but nothing more than hearing of the name Youngblood.
We've got the guitarist used to be a student at the college that I teach at, and we brought him back today for a Q&A thing, and he's got 35. So I just thought I'd ask that question. So there you go. But it mounts up, doesn't it? It mounts up. So talking of guitars, I am not the most perceptive, but I can't help but noticing there is a medieval looking acoustic guitar
Oh,
in the background.
medieval.
Yeah. Is that the model, the medieval 2.0?
No, actually, that is a steel guitar.
Okay.
Call it known as a Weissenborn.
Oh, very nice.
So the Weissenborn, and it's not an original. Although I do have an original. It is a Hawaiian style lap steel guitar, became very popular in the 1920s. And there was like a wooden model of it with a squared off hollow neck. And they sound great. I mean, they sound like a kind of I mean, it's this, it's a slide steel played guitar that doesn't sound exactly like a resonator dobro, but also is not electric. It's a really warm, beautiful tone. And I'm guessing you want me to play it for a second. I mean, like, I can't look at a guitar and then talk about it and not play it. Give me 1 second.
Loving this. It's a beautiful. It does look medieval. It looks as if something that would be played whilst Vikings were fighting, I would imagine.
I mean,
How I perceive
that'd
it.
be tricky because you have to play it on your lap.
This is true.
And it's like kind of goofy sounding. So. It's a little bit out of tune.
It sounds nice. It does sound
But
very nice.
I want to tell you a funny story about this guitar that I still have not gotten answers about. I was playing this Weissenborn, and again, I mentioned that it has this squared off hollow neck. And there is a man named John Schaefer. You may have heard of him. He's been a DJ, music curator guy at WNYC for forever. I mean, really, like, I remember listening to him before I even moved to New York. And he's the most knowledgeable music person out. I mean, maybe it's him and Questlove that they just have all of the knowledge, right? So he was introducing me at a live show, and I was playing Weissenborn. He said, "I noticed you have a Weissenborn." I said, "Yes." And this was a live show, not only live in front of an audience, but also on the radio. And he said, "Oh, that has a hollow neck." I said, "Yes." And he says, "Now, Mr. Weissenborn was not a this was an instrument that was made in the 1920s out of Hawaiian koa wood. It had a crossover between the Hawaiian Islands and the mainland, and that kind of the Hawaiian I don't want to say fetishism, but maybe that's the right word, people getting into the island culture." And so he says to me, "I hear that was traditionally, the hollow neck was traditionally where people hid their meat."
Very interesting.
I
don't
on the
know what to
air.
say to that.
Exactly. Now you know how I felt.
I see. Yes.
You know exactly how I felt.
Yes.
This is a person who knows more about music than anyone I've ever met, and he's telling me that this is an instrument made in the 1920s where people would hide their meat. I'm live on the radio, and I said, "That is the last thing I thought you were going to say." I had no response to that because obviously that is not true. There is just no possible way that people are hiding dried meat in their Weissenborn. Why? Like, this is not happening. There's plenty of other better places to put your meat. Then it gets gross and weird, and you can't even really follow it up. So, but that was my Weissenborn story. So you were correct in that maybe the Vikings hid their meat in their medieval guitars.
And that is a nice transition to Vikings and Guitars, the new book coming out by Kaki King 2024. We can all look forward to that after the European tour. One of the things that you said the very first time that we spoke is that you had this idea of, or this kind of ambition of like being, it'd be awesome to be the drummer in the band, be in the
Yes.
background,
Yes.
being a millionaire, and
Yeah.
here's the key, and nobody would know who I
No.
was. Nobody would know
Yeah.
my name. So it's
Like, you know that guy from that band? You know that guy from that, look at that guy from that band. You know the guy. Yeah, you know the guy. That
all right,
guy from
okay.
that
So you don't know
band.
his name, but the
You know that
the
guy.
cool
That's the
guy,
guy.
right? So you
Yeah.
don't know his name, you don't know
You
where he
know.
lives. Yeah.
Well, you know him, but just or her.
Yeah, that guy.
Yes. I
Yeah.
just wanted to be that guy from that band.
Yeah. So with that in mind, then how much is like was that always been a thing? Is it ever been difficult for you, given that you kind of, I'm assuming, don't want to put words into your mouth, you wanted to be anonymous in that sense, wanted to be successful, but kind of be anonymous at the same time. Has it been awkward for you at any point gaining fame? And okay.
Yes, all of it's been pretty awkward. I had to grow into this role that was confusing and still can be confusing, where I do a very specific thing and I do it as well as I can. And it's kind of incomprehensible if you say it out loud to most of the general public. And I am a complete unknown, and I like that. But there is this like I have found that there are two reactions to saying, oh, like I'll say like 100 times I'll say, hi, I'm Kaki, and people go, that's what? It's Kathy? What? How do you spell that? What? And then there's this one person, and they don't say what happens is I say, hey, I'm Kaki, and they go, oh, like Kaki King, and I'm like, yeah, just like her, actually. And then they just like roll on, and then there's maybe like 1,000% of that population of people that have even heard the name that then actually know that it's me. And then they freak out and they lose their shit and they can't control their feelings because Night After Sidewalk or Close Your Eyes, You'll Burst Into Flame like got them through rehab, or and they have to tell me, and I love that. I'm like really receptive. I know I do. I'm really receptive, and but there is no middle ground. There's like I am a complete nobody. No one has any idea who I am, or it gets very intense. And I don't seem to have people that kind of just, oh yeah, like I'll put on that record. That's cool. It's like people go deep. They go deep. And however, my fan base has loved me and accepted me and followed me and kind of known that I'm going to do some new crazy thing. And yet like come along for the journey for 20 years. So I am very, very happy to be exactly where I am.
And again, I don't mean to just revisit old stuff, but just something that kind of transpired from it, having recently become a parent myself a couple of years back, in which, if you remember, you were giving me some advice on.
I do, yeah.
He hadn't been born yet. You gave me some great advice, so I'll be seeking your advice, given that he's 2 now, so you can talk me through the next step. Again, this is all free, great information. But you were telling me at the time, having just had I can't remember what interview it was, but you were saying that I've actually got a lot of mum friends now. So there's a whole kind of group of people. So going back to what you were just talking about there, when you're doing the school run or when you're doing the kind of normal mum things, is it a bit weird at times? Has there ever been any interactions? So what do you do for work? Play guitar. And then tell me about this. Tell me about this.
It hasn't really changed outside of the general population. I do have this thing though that again it's just so funny, because when you play instrumental music for a living, you are already in it's like very, very, very small category of musicians, period. And especially when you're not a DJ, so you're either sort of a jazz, classical, but you're still it's very, very niche, right? I'm not like worried that people don't know who the hell I am, but there's a pre-Google and a post-Google friendship. And now this is common for a lot of people.
As you take a drink there, I'm just going to say, this is, if I want, I'm going to take that title, a pre-Google, post-Google friendship. Can I take that as mine? I'll give you a percentage, but it's not going to be a big percentage.
It's yours. It is it's a phenomenon that we're all familiar with, because what do we do when we meet a new person? Oh, okay, what do you do? Oh, real estate. Oh, okay. What do you, oh, my dog, and then you go and you like search them to see, okay, well, who are they really? And like, what, and this is a thing that we now do. But for me, it is like, I think the reaction is like, seriously, that person like that? Because I'm short and I come into my house wearing like, t-shirts with like spaghetti stains and just like crummy shorts and flip-flops, and and I just like, dragging my two children who are insane, and then I kind of, and then I like wander the neighborhood, like I pop in at my various spots with my coffee, and I check in with my people, and then I do my round in the local park, and then I think that there's this kind of, because no one really sees my professional work or my professional life. Like I'm not even like, they don't even see me on the way home from the office in my, so it's definitely like, it's um it's funny, but there's been a couple times where like there's some very there's a community of French parents, because our school has a dual language program.
Okay.
And they're just for French. They're a little inaccessible as the French can be.
Okay.
And they're all very pretty and glamorous and sort of, and I am learning French.
Do that again.
No. It's like I need to have a cigarette and a coffee and a lover. Like it's like in fair America does not just give you this thing. Oh, and so I've ingratiated myself with them, and there was a moment where the French moms like brought me into the inner circle,
You got
and
accepted.
that was a post Google moment.
Oh wow, I see.
Yeah,
right,
I could tell. I just knew it. I knew it. I've even seen people, like I've met people and they're like, oh yeah, oh, and then you can look me up on the yeah, I'm on Spotify. Yeah. I'm on, yeah. And then they're like, look at their phone, look at me, and look at their phone, and be like, oh my God, that's that little shrimpy, weirdo. It's actually like she does this cool thing. I don't know. I mean, I've gotten like, I really do love my life right now, because I feel like I have this really super awesome, welcoming, wonderful community for my children, for my family, for, I've been involved in local issues for a number of years now, which I never was before. And I feel like there's a lot of people that I wouldn't have met had I not had children. But I also feel like there is this huge group of people who love me exactly for who I am and really don't know what I do for a living. And they really couldn't care less, because I'm really a nice person that has something to contribute, and I'm funny. And, I think that there's true friendship in my life, which is really great. And not that I didn't have that before, but it was a lot of like industry friendship, which doesn't mean that it's bad, and that doesn't mean that I don't have lifelong friends from all of the things that I've done and met, but there's a sense of like, if I quit guitar, it wouldn't matter to any of these people. And those friendships are hard fought, because it's just your exact self, and people loving you and accepting you for just your personality. And I didn't always have a winning personality. I was awkward, and I was kind of a hater, and I was really confused about what the hell was happening most of the time. And now I'm not, and I just feel really like I like myself as a person, and playing guitar doesn't really affect that level of confidence or self-satisfaction the way it used to.
It's very interesting. It feels like it's such a great take. You're kind of like Batman. Just
Yes, that's exactly what I say, actually.
Yes.
They say, what do you do for a living? I'm like, just
Can't
think
say
Batman.
anything. Yeah, just go, just Batman, and you've got you need a red phone. That's what you need. Do you get that reference? Yeah. This was meant to be. This was meant to be. Everybody that's watching this is going to go, he knew. confirm that I had no idea you had
He
a red
had no
phone.
idea.
I had no
The
idea.
phone was not in the picture until now.
Yes, exactly. And again, I'm not this good of an actor, everybody. So there you go. So let me ask you this: are the Star Spangled Ash Shredders ever going to play live?
I don't think so.
No.
I think that was a wonderful fate. That was a wonderful time. Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters they'd all kind of been enamored with my vibe and what I was doing at the time. And it was a really, really fun, crazy trip touring with the Foo Fighters and playing in arenas and playing with Dave Grohl. It was amazing. And I think that sometimes those moments are best left. There doesn't need to be a follow-up. The follow-up might very well kind of suck or be too pushed. The fact that it was so wild and like, come play on the record, come on tour, there was no it wasn't contrived. No one was talking to my friend in marketing around, it just happened. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm grateful to have met Taylor Hawkins, and I'm grateful that he is a lesson in why I stay sober, because he really wanted it. And I saw it at the time. I saw someone who really wanted it and wasn't able to hold on to it ultimately. So you stay sober to honor these people's memory and to honor what they were able to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it for it to go down that road.
No. I mean, I didn't mean to get all serious too, but there are these. It was a wild time, and I certainly wasn't sober at the time, and I think that had a lot of that influenced the feeling of everything that was happening in the rock and roll of it all. And also watching someone who at that time was it was I don't know the worlds that he was bridging were tricky. But really nice, just really, really freaking amazing, lovely group of people. And it definitely ticked every single box. Like, I never need to do that kind of stuff again, because I get it. I see it now. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is intense in a whole nother fucking level.
And to give context for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Dave Grohl emailed Kaki, of course, saying we should start a band called the Star Spangled Ash Shredders. Love that story. And you guys end up working together. I love the fact that every single one of them, they just love music. But it's so cool. It's so great. So we're talking about parenthood. We're talking about the tour coming up. Give us some advice. How are you balancing the two? Because in my situation, not that I'm flaming European tours and all the rest of it, but to your point earlier, even getting out of the house and gigging, I'm a bit like, right, okay, this is a juggling act here with one child. I've got this, I've got that. You're about to embark on a European tour with two kids and this, that, and the next thing. Talk to us about the juggling act. Talk to us about the preparation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. I think my children are 9 and 6. They are well-adjusted, happy, generally speaking. They're pretty. They understand, and I feel like I've done as much as I can as a parent to make those relationships secure when I am home. So I'm not as worried. And I think that when you leave a partner, I'm leaving my wife, who's going to be doing all of the childcare as well as working as well, that it's definitely more of a like, get on the road, make your money, come home. It's not like spend a few days in Greece at the end of your tour. I mean, there's none of that. And there is a lot of well, if it doesn't like really pay enough, like I'll get an offer to go somewhere and play a gig, and everything's for free and the fee is really, really low, and I'm like, I just can't do it. I can't go away and not make money at this phase of my life. But it's a phase, it's a season of your life. Touring at this point is far, far easier. They have tons and tons of friends. We have tons and tons of neighbors and help and people that are just like, oh yeah, like they'll come stay with me, or I'll pick them up from school. Like, we sort of have this huge backup plan. And now that they're older, they're they do not need that, like, it's not the level of physical intensity. Emotionally it does get different. So and with COVID I was around so much more, and so I'm not entirely sure how it's going to go. But I do think that I need it. Like, I had been accustomed to traveling and being on the road and being by myself for, my entire life. And having children has put some logistics in the way of that. So when I'm home, I am really, really here, and I'm really, really present. And when I'm away, I'm away. And it creates, I think, a better Kaki and a better mom.
Very interesting, and it's great. And how, like, when you think 20 years ago, playing these songs and touring this, it's just a different. It must. You look back on that person, and to a certain degree, you go, that's a different person, or I mean, do you see it that way?
I think maybe, well, I'll say for myself, I grew into this world really, I'm not going to say reluctantly, but I was not prepared, because it's still confounding. I mean, I thought I didn't have any thoughts. I didn't have, like, you don't start playing solo acoustic guitar and think about being on television. Like, it was not even happening in my mind, being on TV, getting signed to a major label, and suddenly having people know who I was before I walked in the room. Like, it was very sudden. I was very young, immature, and I call myself a young soul. Like, I feel like, there's old souls who, oh, you feel like they've kind of been around this world several times. I am, like, brand new. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm so confused. Not confused, but I just am like, things people seem to just know naturally. I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. I'm not like, and so it was not easy. And it was not easy for me to maybe take advantage of some of the opportunities given to me. I don't know. I was just doing my best with what I had. And I think that is me looking back and going, I had, or maybe one of the least prepared people for this bizarre thing where I was, like, kind of famous, but not really famous. And, like, people, working all the time, but no money. And just kind of trying to exist and figure out what it was. I don't know. It was a lot of just, moving on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And so I definitely look back at my younger self and I go, man, I could have dropped out. I could have been like, this is just too much. Or I need to go take a 2-year, trip to the woods. And I mean, like, there was a lot of things were overwhelming, and I don't know, I just kept doing it and kept pushing through no matter what hardship or what I don't know. I never felt like I was done. I never felt like, okay, I'm like made the record now and I just was like, no, I gotta do this new next thing. But I had a lot of help and I had a lot of support, and I'm grateful for those people as well.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, 20 years later, the fact that you're with instrumental music, so many guitar players similar to yourself actually that I interview, they're saying, I just hope I'm able to do this in 10 years' time. I hope I'm able to
Yeah,
do this in 15 years' time,
same.
because, yeah, and it's just like, it's one of those things. Your story is complete success. European tour coming up. You can see all the dates on Kaki's website. Just phenomenal. And because, as you stated earlier, it's something that's very niche. You've got to be really, really, really good at that stuff to gain attention. And why am I saying this to you? You know this 10 times better than I do, of course. But it's very interesting, and it's great to see that it's having such great success. Especially for so long. I'm going to be super selfish for a second and talk about me. Are you ready
Yeah,
for
tell
this?
me. I'm ready.
So I've got
I need the update.
I've got a gig coming up. I'm going to be doing a gig in a few months, and it's a kind of solo-y thing, right? So it's almost like a recital type thing, going up and doing some acoustic instrumentals and stuff like that. And
Excellent.
I'm stealing one of your songs. I hope that's cool.
Which
Yeah,
one?
I'm doing the wrong thing,
Oh, good job.
and
Well done, you.
I've got a section in the middle of it that I've kind of altered it. I've butchered your song. I've murdered it.
No, 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 no.
So yeah,
No, 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 no. There's no butchering. It's
there's no
just,
butcher. There's
it's
no butcher in the
just
room.
interpretation.
interpretation.
It's just what you,
Yeah. So, with that in mind, what advice would you give to people like myself, or in that situation where I play the drums? I think you know that, right? I play the
Yeah.
drums usually in a band and all the rest of it, and so there's all these people out in front of me that know what they're doing, and I'm hitting
Yeah.
drums, right? But I'm
Yeah.
going to be like, I've
Because
done a
you're that
couple,
guy.
because I'm that guy.
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
In that
Yeah,
band.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
that guy in that band. But being at front and doing acoustic guitar, done thing. But in a situation where it's so intense and people are listening to every single note, you know this world better than anybody. What advice have you got in that circumstance?
Yeah. So these are things I've learned. Definitely have an air of make people feel comfortable, because when it's only you and there's a sense that you're like, just act like you own the place. Just say, because you're already going to do something that's so kind of, a little bit not as average. And I would just, so the way I think about gigs now is because once upon a time I thought it was the audience's job, like they needed to behave in a way that made me feel good. So now the opposite is true. I am the host. I am the person on the stage with the guitar, with the microphone. I am like the MC, and I have to set a tone of like welcoming, confidence, being, polite, being funny, and sometimes it's much harder than actually playing the guitar. But I think that it just gives people a little bit of like, that's how they're going to act. Again, when I was younger, I thought, well, if the audience is not going to shut up, then I'm just going to like kind of put my head down and just rip and shred. Now I know that I can give them cues. And that is like some really big, I mean, it could just be body language, I would say, come as prepared as you can. Don't sweat it. But I think that the more muscle memory you can put in your bank, the easier the nerves or all of that. Like, did I remember my tuner, my this, my plugin? Doing gigs is hard, and the tech of it can, really gum up the works. Whether that's like, oh, there's hunting down an unknown buzz, or the monitors are feeding back, whatever kind of little issue it is. But just like, don't let it phase you. Everything's gonna work out. And I think that having that kind of ease and comfort, you got to fake it till you make it, right? And then plus the songs that you are going to play well rehearsed. And I tell people, ideally you'd be able to play the whole song while having kind of a conversation with someone. Real tricky, real hard. That's a very, it's a long way down the road. But that's the goal, so that you can do this literally while you're asleep. And that's kind of it.
It's just in case I'm misinterpreting that. Play it as if you can still have a conversation, so I can still chat to you whilst playing that song. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, that would be where you are, your muscle memory has taken over to the extent that you do not have to worry about a damn thing. And that takes years of experience, but that for me is how I can continue to go on the road year after year after year. Because if I had to continually relearn everything and be sweaty and worried about, am I playing the right notes on stage? Because that's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is tone and delivery and pacing and all of this like subtle stuff. Because the fingering and the notes and all of it, that's kind of in my body. And so that's why I say, yeah, like be able to hold, be playing and kind of be able to be, respond to a question, or say, oh yeah, and then this part is going to go like this, and then I'm going to go move that, and just be able to like walk your own self through the song while speaking, because that is the ultimate signal that you have. And this is like coming from sports, right? Someone would be able to like, be like, okay, I'm going to show you how to throw this ball. I'm going to step back and do this thing. And then they do the motion repeatedly, so that it's fully, I don't even know what part of your brain is really activated at that point, but it shouldn't be your conscious focused brain. That part of the brain gets to focus on the subtlety of how you deliver this song in a way that really sells it to the audience that's there and hanging on every note. And that is where the brain should be functioning. That's where I feel the most comfortable if I'm not like, okay, what's coming next? That should just be something I can't even tell you, but my fingers are gonna go there.
That's
Make
awesome.
sense?
Absolutely. No,
Are
that's
you can you get ready for that?
yes. No, I will. Every word of that will be resonating while I'm butchering your song on stage. I'm joking. I'm
No,
joking. I'll
good.
make sure I won't. I'll make sure I won't. I'm going to do the outro for this, but I'll keep you on at the very end to say your proper
Yeah.
goodbyes. Okay. Kaki King, you can catch the European tour. Everybody Loves You is the album. I can't believe that it's been 20 years. Is she going to play the album in entirety? Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? There's a whole host of questions to be answered, but you can only see by turning up and see the fantastic Kaki King coming to a European city near you. Kaki, any final words for the fans?
Come for the guitar playing and stay for me butchering various European languages. But I will try each and every night. I've got Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, and probably English, which I cannot speak.
London
Whatever
accent.
and I think that there's a lot of what I love about Europe is your micro cultures that you hold so dear, and everyone's got their own weird language and cheese and type of sheep that has been happening for several thousand years that they want to talk to me about when I come. So please tell me about your cheese and your sheep breeds and whatever strange language that only this one person in this one valley still knows, because I think it's interesting.
She is the guy from that band. And always remember, everyone, there is a pre-Google and post-Google friendship. And just make sure that you
make
Google...
sure that if your friendship has to be one or the other, just if the person treats you the same post-Google, that's a friend.
And if you don't walk away with that as a bit of wisdom to carry for the rest of your life, then you're not worth speaking to in my book. Kaki King, absolute pleasure.